Well, hello. What's up, everyone? We are back for our second day in a row. This is our tight end video from the Pyro rookie dossier. On this show, we will be talking about the 2017 draft class tight ends. Now we know where they've landed. We know the team they play for. So let's get into it and give you guys the fantasy goo on these guys. Dropping the knowledge as usual. Well, it's our second time ever doing it. So for the second time ever, we've got the Harbeat here joining me. We have Waz as well. I'm D-Rex. We are all members of Pyromaniac.com. Check out the website. Good stuff happening all around there as we head into the fantasy football season. Exciting stuff. What's up, guys? Hope everything's good here on Mother's Day, and you guys have talked to your moms or given props and love to all the mothers out there.
Yeah, I just wanted to say before we got started, hey, I get some reverb right now.
Okay, I'll put my headphones on. Keep going.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to wish a happy Mother's Day to all of D-Rex's baby mamas out there. So for the however many dozens there are or stuff like that, I'm pretty sure he's got some around.
Not done yet either.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say a happy Mother's Day to all the Pyro moms out there, especially my mom right here, Jackie, back in Boston. I love you, but if anything happens to my dog Kobe, you're done. You're just done.
Nice. That makes sense. I would feel the same exact way. Good stuff. Beautiful day. Fired up to get into it. Yesterday we recorded the quarterback show in prime Pyro fashion. We almost went 2 hours long. We're going to try and motor through this a little bit faster for no other reason than we know you nuts like this long-winded stuff that we deliver, but we want to get on and enjoy the rest of our Sunday. So we will get right into it for you, and it's pretty exciting. It was a crazy year in the draft for the tight end. 3 tight ends taken in the first round, and there was just a bevy of talent at the position that has been distributed around the league. We did tight end show on the Pyro podcast probably about 3 or so weeks ago, and a continually stag party is just like, these guys could use a tight end. These guys could use a tight end. Well, it was a great draft class, and a lot of those teams have been helped out. The first tight end taken was O.J. Howard. Slipped a little bit. I think we all in the mocks leading up, everyone, it kind of seemed like he was going to the Jets and he was going to be a top 10 pick. Slipped down a little bit, ended up going to the Buccaneers. I'll let one of you guys start your discussion pro OJ. And
yeah, so if we're going pro OJ, I think I have to start, right? Because I think Harbeat has a lot of flack to throw OJ Howard's way. Yeah, I was actually surprised that the first round of the draft fell a little bit differently than I expected. I would have expected him to be taken at least by Baltimore and Ozzie Newsome over there at 16 at the latest. So I was proven wrong. I think I also lost a little a side bet with D-Rex there saying, I don't think this could be all 3 tight ends taken in the first round. But that was for my little bit of discouragement towards Joku. We'll get into some of those things today. But O.J. Howard, personally, and what many people are saying, he's damn near the perfect tight end prospect, in my opinion. I don't see any flaws with O.J. Howard at all. Perfectly measured in every way. 6'5", 251 pounds, 33 3/4 inch arm length, 10-inch hands. He can block, he can catch, he could do it all. He's actually 11 pounds heavier than Leonard Fournette, and he ran the same 40 time. You have that kind of athlete who looks elite for the position. I'm not super happy. I'm not happy at all with the landing spot there in Tampa Bay, mostly because of someone like Jameis Winston. Yeah, I have a lot to say about him positively. He's beyond willing blocker. I mean, there at Alabama, he was probably used as a blocker too much because we didn't really get to see him show off all of his game, everything that I think he's capable of. He's strong. How is he going to perform in a higher volume passing game in Tampa Bay? Probably really good. A little bit different than Alabama, who were running the ball often, and he would be out there to block like every so often. Every time he touches the ball, though, he looks amazing. His last 2 seasons at college, in the college playoffs, all 4 games, he had 4 catches for 94 yards and 0.75 average touchdown per game. So he was effective when he actually got the ball in his hands for those few times. But I'll let Harbeat throw a little bit of shade on him real quick before I start blowing some more smoke up his ass.
I mean, well, we saw him going as high as number 4 in mock drafts, and that would have been the highest pick tight end in the history of the NFL. Because I mean, what was it? Number 6 was Kellen. What's his name? Sorry, Kellen. Kellen Winslow Jr. And I mean, like does have the perfect measurables: 6'5", 6'6", 251. He ran a great 40 time. He has a great build, a great frame. But one of those things is, why did he go to Alabama? If he's such a great tight end, doesn't he want to kind of inflate his stats, get ready to go to the next league? So he only really, his high was 45 catches, 602 yards, and 3 touchdowns in a season. And those were all different seasons. So the potential is there, but the production's kind of lacking. So that's really where my hesitation is with him. Also, he's going into a Tampa Bay system where we all know Jameis loves the tight end. He peppered Mike Evans with targets last year, but Mike Evans is really a tight end target. He's 6'4", he can go up and get the ball. But then, I mean, look at Jameis. He went time and time again to Nick O'Leary when he was at Florida State. He turned him into one of the better tight end college prospects. Cameron Brate came out of nowhere and became a fantasy stud last year after we saw ASJ was supposed to get that role. He got cut, and then Brate took over. And I mean, there are so many mouths to feed in that Tampa Bay offense that how is he really going to get a chance? The rookie tight ends, there have only been 8 rookie tight ends that have ever got over 500 yards in that first rookie year. So, I mean, what's his real upside? I know he has a good future. He should be one of those 10 to 12-year vets that has a solid career. But for this upcoming year, I don't really see that much upside with him, especially with Brate still there.
I mean, even with that low output that you mentioned that Howard had there at Alabama, and why he would go to Alabama is because Alabama's been a winning football team. I mean, these kids come out of high school and they would love to play for a powerhouse like Alabama. He just wanted to do what they needed from him, and that was, we need you to block, and we need you to catch those passes when we need you to. And he did really well with that. And he said that Jameis Winston loves, peppering his tight ends and stuff like that. That's because I'm kind of low on Jameis Winston because he throws like 4 kinds of passes. And I mentioned this on the Dynasty Playbook podcast last week. Either it's like 20 feet over the receiver's head to the other team. So he's throwing many interceptions. We talked a little bit about that one time. He'll just chuck the ball up to Mike Evans, hope for the best. And Mike Evans is the kind of athlete that can come down with them. But then his 4th kind of passes are those dump passes, all those safety valve throws to his tight end, those passes that will pad his stats to maintain like a 60% completion percentage. And so that leaves O.J. Howard with, a 25% chance every play from Jameis Winston to catch a football. Cameron Brate, he had a nice season, but that was a direct effort of, them not really having anyone else to throw to at the time except for Mike Evans. But I do believe Cameron Brate will still be a factor. They know how to utilize him, but I think O.J. Howard will be ready to go right out the gate as well. They have all the skill players. Like I said, it's very, very busy there in Tampa Bay now with Deshaun Jackson as well. But I think, the kind of quarterback that Jameis is and the kind of passes that he throws, he will be relevant for year one. So Jameis Winston is kind of a little bit of negative for O.J. Howard. So is Dirk Cutter. I mean, as soon as I think Cutter leaves in, 1 to 2 years, hopefully, I think that's going to change the offense a little bit, change the team a little bit. And I think we'll see a little bit more from O.J. Howard, but he is kind of restricted due to the coaching and the quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think when you looked at the team last year, the Buccaneers, you kind of thought, wow, this is one of those really offensive weapon deficient teams out there. You kind of had Evans and no one else to compete with him, and then you had Brate came out of nowhere. The running back situation was okay, but kind of a lot of middling kind of guys. And now it's the exact opposite. You draft O.J. Howard, you draft Deshaun Jackson to help do the fly patterns and open things up a little bit underneath. So there's a lot of unknowns with this team, and as Harbeat, and we've talked before. Just the way that the tight end position in their rookie season doesn't come out gangbusters. I personally, in redraft leagues, am going to stay away from Howard. And when people draft him because of the big name and coming from the big program, I'm going to be kind of happy. I think he's got a good career ahead of him. And I'll let you guys talk about the dynasty side of it, where he's probably got hella upside. But for this year, there's too many tight ends out there that I like so much better than him. So I'm going to stay away. The one thing I do love about this kid, and this is basically all I'm going to say about OJ Howard, you guys can take the mic and run with it after this, is I like his mindset. He's not a diva. He's not, he was kind of promised by Saban after 2 years ago, after they won the championship, hey, we're going to utilize you more in our offense next year. We know you're a stud. We just have all these beasts and have all these unbelievable players. And they kind of bait and switched him a little bit. It didn't really kind of happen. He wasn't really a focus point of their offense. Came through big in the championship game, but they lost. So I think I like his mentality that he's going out there and he's a football player and he's going to be a piece of the puzzle that's going to help a team. Does that help you for fantasy football? Probably not as much. But I do like the guy, and also as we've talked about, Greg Olsen is kind of his the player that people compare him to the most, and that's his favorite player as well. So I like a kid that's going to emulate Greg Olsen, the player in which the Bears traded away for nothing, and I'm still not over it.
Yeah,
I'm done.
One more thing that I'll say is one thing that definitely helped him is I think if he didn't go to Alabama where they have all those running plays, and even especially when Jalen Hurts came in at quarterback, and he's not a passing quarterback, he's a running quarterback. I think they had like almost a 70% run to pass ratio. So he really improved his run blocking and blocking altogether. Whereas if you went to a more pass heavy school, I think we'd see him as kind of the Evan Engram or the Gerald Everett, kind of that pass receiving only tight end. But I think the 4 years of practice at Alabama really stepped up his blocking game. So he could step in right away. And Cutter came out and said that they want to run more 2 tight end sets this year. So they're going to be getting OJ Howard and great action early and often.
Yeah, I think it's because they absolutely have to there. I think Jameis needs that. I mean, they have a really good running game. I don't care who's running the ball in that backfield. They can efficiently run the football. But at the same time, they did need those passing options on offense as well to kind of give that balance. And so teams aren't always just jumping the run. You mentioned dynasty value, D-Rex. He is definitely the hottest tight end prospect, in my opinion, for dynasty. He is a definite mid-first rounder. People are taking him around 106, 107, 108 at times. It really depends, especially if you're in a tight end premium league. You're looking at a long career for a guy like OJ Howard, that prototypical tight end who can do it all. He is worth the price. He is worth sitting on if he doesn't get all the volume this year, but you will see him produce year after year after year. And I think that's a very safe thing to do for tight ends, especially in dynasty. Especially, they're hard to come by. They're very hard to come by, and I don't think you could pass on a guy like OJ Howard.
One thing that I'll point out is in Alabama, in Saban's system, almost every single player that comes into the NFL has an injury issue or a nagging injury issue. But OJ Howard got a consensus 100% medical report from all of the teams, and I think he's the first player in combine history to get that. So that's just a glowing result for him.
Especially for tight ends. I mean, they get their bodies beat the hell up, especially when they're going out there to run routes and catch passes through the middle of the field. They get beat up. And the fact that OJ Howard can stay healthy, it looks like he maintains his body very well. Like I said, that prototypical size and build, it looks really good for OJ Howard and his NFL future.
Yeah, the experience that he gets at Alabama in those big games, the platform, big lights, and being able to respond that way does say good things for OJ Howard. Well, let's move on to the next tight end, and we will go to Evan Engram, taken with the 23rd pick in the first round by the New York Football Giants. They now have finally a tight end that can do something out there. It seems like that team – between Larry Donnell and Will Tye, and it just seems you have to go back to like literally Shockey ages ago to think of a tight end from that team that's got any sort of relevance when it comes to fantasy football, but really even doing shit on the field for the NFL level teams at a football level. So Engram seems like he's going to be used a bit more like a wide receiver. He kind of has that sort of game and element that I think, I read a little bit of some reports that said they're going to try and turn him into a prototypical tight end and improve his blocking. But don't think that's really going to happen. You kind of are what you are. And I don't see him becoming all of a sudden some sort of inline blocking tight end. It's just not going to be his game. So what do you guys think about him? What are his prospects as far as his career for this year? Do you like how he's going to fit in with ODBJ? What are you guys thinking about the speedster out of Ole Miss?
Well, yeah, he actually ran a 4.42 in the combine, so he's real fast. And I think he's like 6'3", 240. So, I mean, he's going to be a real versatile player. When is he going to see the field? Because the Giants, they like to run those three wide receiver sets. They did almost 97% of the time last year. And they have their three wide receivers in Shepard, OBJ, and Marshall. So I think they're really bringing him in to be mentored by Brandon Marshall to kind of try to develop that role as a guy that can go on those deep passes and then go up over defenders to get the ball. He's kind of a triple threat receiver, as he can hit you on the short game, he can hit you on the long game, and he can hit you in the vertical game. So he can go up and get it. And another thing to mention is 2 years ago when they played Alabama, when he was on Ole Miss, he just had his way with Landon Collins, and they're going to have some real fun practices together being in those SEC rival schools. So that's going to be fun to watch, and it's going to be fun to see him develop into a pro.
Yeah, and you mentioned how often the Giants ran those three wide receiver sets, and I think it makes perfect sense why the Giants do want him put into a more traditional tight end role where they want him to block, but he is a terrible, awful blocker. He doesn't want to block. He's the kind of guy that wants to be that receiver, but I think he's gonna be hard pressed to find that opportunity in New York. Draft Twitter nearly had a meltdown when they read the report that how the Giants were planning to use Ingram. And I believe, like I said, I believe the report because he lined up as like the wide receiver. Half the time he lined up away from the line, like a flanker. Other half of the time he was a step or two behind the offensive line in a near tight end position, like between like a halfback and a tight end. But he can't block. It's just like a Will Tye who they came in, they wanted a receiving threat, but Will Tye couldn't block for shit either. So I think we're going to have a hard time getting any production out of someone like Evan Ingram year one, maybe even year two. If anyone were to flame out for the tight ends in the first round, is probably Evan Ingram if they keep him in a traditional blocking sense. And the thing is, if he runs like these tight end routes in the NFL, I think he's going to get killed. He still has a small frame. He should be a wide receiver, but they're going to be using him as a tight end. It's a recipe for disaster. The NFL is wanting these big, beefy guys for tight ends in those traditional roles. At his cost right now, which he is also going at the end of the first round, just because there's like a big tier drop. There's just a huge tier of guys, and some people are going to still go on the Evan Ingram receiving threat tight end hype and take them over all the wide receivers or running backs they're still left. But he's a hard pass for me this year, and probably in Dynasty because of how expensive he is.
Yeah, I will bring up in Dynasty, he could be more valuable down the line if he does convert into more of a wide receiver position, because he'll be more of that Jimmy Graham type down when he was in New Orleans, as that tight end who's really a receiver going out, split out, and he's getting those wide receiver stats. And then, PA asking him to be changed to a wide receiver so he can get that big paycheck. But I mean, yeah, it does look like it's going to be 2 to 3 years down the line when Marshall's gone, when he really gets a chance to implement himself into that offense as a full-time starter. And so if you're going to take him in Dynasty, you have to know you're going to be playing the long game with him.
Well, I like your comparison in the notes. That's he's like a faster Larry Fitzgerald, I think. Obviously, he doesn't have that savvy route running. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald's a Hall of Famer, one of the greats, definitely one of the best players to be in the NFL across any position over the last 12, 13 years. But I like that kind of comparison where he's got the same body almost. Maybe he's a little bit heavier, and he's faster. So we'll see what they can do. Eli, it sometimes makes your head scratch and seems a little bit lost. I don't know what to expect. You got more mouths to feed. You got Sterling Shepard going into his second season. You got me first, Brandon Marshall now as their wide receiver 2. You add Ingram to the mix, and you've obviously got to feed OBJ, or he's going to be bitching and kissing you know, kicking nets on the sideline or doing some rants and kind of sideline antics. So I just added tantrum and antics together and it was tantics. But you'll see what happens there. This seems like it could be a kind of a rough situation. I might be staying clear of this offense. Didn't really add too much in the backfield situation. So unless this team's going to be just throwing the shit out of the ball, I'm a little bit worried about, other than Odell, but I'm worried about what's going to be happening. Who's going to get the ball? If there's going to be a locker room of guys that are sitting watching game in the wide receivers or receivers room, and they're going to be kind of as a cohesive unit, or if everyone's going to be me first. And these are the things that we'll find out this season. But he's an otherworld talent, no question about it. Should we move on, or you guys got anything else? Is there any kind of?
I got one more note. It would be interesting to see if McAdoo wants to use him as an H-back too. If he can develop a little pass pro to come in, play a little H-back, then they'll have the ability to, get him in on a couple more third downs, get him a little more game action. And I mean, who they have now is Perkins and Vereen, and I mean, the writing's really on the wall for Vereen. Perkins still has a little bit of upside, but I'm not that high on Perkins. And so I think he could come in, play a little third down and H-back if he develops some pass protection.
Yeah, I really like that take actually right there. He is kind of familiar with lining up near an H-back there in college. There in Ole Miss. I actually drew a blank for a second. I think he could be very effective. He could probably do what the Giants wanted Shane Vereen to do. But ever since Coughlin left, we thought that, hey, maybe Vereen's going to work out. Last year it didn't work out either. They have plans for Ingram. And we'll see if they throw him in those third downs and a halfback, situational kind of halfback. Mm-hmm. That's probably his best chance at being relevant on the Giants for at least the next 2 years.
Do you think that maybe they drafted him knowing they had Brandon Marshall, and they kind of drafted him thinking in 3 years this guy can get a little more savvy, learn the game a little bit better, learn from a guy that knows how to use his body and get after a ball like few others that are still in the league for sure with Brandon Marshall, and hoping that Marshall's tutelage can really turn him into the next big wide receiver that they can be running with for the next 10 years or so alongside of Odell?
I don't really think so. I mean, if he is learning from Brandon Marshall, we better hope it's in the first year for Brandon Marshall before Brandon Marshall gives up in the second year. I just don't think he has the size to really ever make it work for a long time. Even if he kind of switches over to wide receiver, I just have a really good feeling he's going to flame out and he's going to be kind of forgotten about in a few years. It just, nothing looks right on paper, or his size and how they want to use him. It just doesn't look good at all, and I can't even be kind of positive about it, except for Harbeat was mentioning, if they do kind of use him as a situational halfback, I could see that maybe work, but that's not long-term thing. That's not always going to work.
Yeah, and it was a really interesting pick. I mean, because all the Giants fans I talk to, everyone that I see, everyone had them going with Ramsack or an offensive tackle. So going with probably the worst blocking tight end in the draft and with their first pick, that was a really confusing move. So, I mean, either McAdoo has something that he has planned for him, or he's going to be a huge bust. So, I mean, it's really on the kid to produce.
Should be interesting. I'm definitely excited to see if he can step up and make it happen. Let's go on to the third tight end taken in the first round out of Miami. That's David Njoku, and he was taken by the Browns. He was the 29th pick in the first round. What do you guys think about this guy? He's another guy that when I look at him and I'm watching his game film, especially with the ball in his hands, he looks more like a wide receiver. He looks like he just looks like he's got that body that just is much more like a wide receiver, almost like it looks like Sanu or something out there. What do you guys think? What are your expectations? What is his who do you model him after? What are your takes on Njoku?
I mean, Njoku is my favorite prospect long-term in this draft at tight end. He comes out of tight end university Miami, where, I mean, they have people like Jeremy Shockey, Kellen Winslow Jr., which I have in my notes, so I don't know how I fucking blanked on his name before, Greg Olson, and Jimmy Graham. So, I mean, Miami produces tight ends that they just do. He is one of the best raw talents to come out of there as well. West Virginia coach said that he was the biggest and baddest dude he's ever had to face. He's a matchup nightmare, and the Browns really believe him. They got rid of Gary Barnidge immediately after drafting him and signing him, so they plan on implementing him right away. I think even though he is raw, he's gonna have to learn how to pass block, how to rush block, but he could be an immediate impact in that offense. They don't really know what they're doing at quarterback, so he could get a good rapport with that quarterback early. And I mean, he is just such a physical freak that, I mean, he's like a Josh Gordon type where you can just give him a slant and he could take away with it.
He has a lot of similarities to, you mentioned Jeremy Shockey and tight end university there at Miami. Joku, I'm not as big on him as you are, but he does bring a lot of interesting things to the table. He's an above average tight end athlete, above average speed for a tight end. He's a great athlete, great agility, terrific leaping ability. He's a danger in the red zone. But at the same time, I've seen him many times just drop or hack up so many easy passes. He doesn't seem consistent. He does seem like he has a hands issue when there's a lot of pressure put around him. But if you're looking for, or if you're trying to compare Joku, if you're talking about these elite tight ends, these top three, if you try to compare him to like an OJ Howard or a Jimmy Graham, you're going to be like very disappointed, I think. But if you're looking more like someone like a better Eric Ebron, who I think he models very, very well with, and I'm not even a big Ebron guy, but I think you'll be satisfied with the results. I think Joku can be a better Ebron, but there are some people that are like super high in Eric Ebron, but due to his ability. But at the same time, we have to consider the fact that he is in Cleveland. There are a lot of really good young pass catchers out there. Joku's, from year one, I think we're going to need to see year one to see how he's going to be utilized, how adaptable he will be in the offense around the other receiving options. He is the big, the big target for the Browns now, though. But at the same time, a target, their quarterbacks suck. So you could be a big target, but you still need a good quarterback. And I think we reiterated this yesterday. Cleveland just desperately needs a quarterback to make a lot of these pieces work. And as the quarterback improves, I think Joku's outlook and projections will improve as well.
Yeah, I think Joku, I have him as a really high ceiling. It's obvious he's a real raw player. He's actually a chief from Africa. His Twitter handle is Chief David Noku. And so he came over when he was 19 or 20. He never played football before that. So I think the drop problems, it's not a physical problem. I think it's a mental problem. I think he'll make mistakes route running. He has to cement that. He has to get the reps. He has to get the experience. So that's why I think they got rid of Barnidge, so he could get in right away, get those first team reps, and they could start building him up so he could be a bigger target, a bigger asset for fantasy in year 2 or 3. And that's when I think he's really going to kind of hit his stride. The first couple of years, they are going to be rough. You are going to see those mental laps where he just doesn't seem like he's there for a possession or a quarter. But I think you're going to see those big plays. He could take a 60-yard touchdown, and that's really all you need for a tight end for that week. That's 12-point standard. So that's really what you're looking for, and he has the ability to do that. So I'm all in on Joku long-term. I don't think I'm going to go after him except for maybe like a really late tight end 2 in redraft, but good things for him, especially if those Browns get a quarterback. That said, the best quarterback on the team from last year is now playing wide receiver for the Redskins. So
that's pretty funny. I think this is interesting. I'm shocked that he's 246 as weight. He looks much skinnier than that in pads. I will say that. So he's either got some lean muscle mass happening or something along those lines. But I think it'll be interesting to see. Poor Gary Barnidge. Welcome to the Twitter. Welcome to the team, Chief. 15 minutes later. I'm out. Good luck with that one there, buddy. Thanks for taking my job.
I mean, I think that's a really good sign of things to come. The fact that they were willing to just get rid of Barnidge that quick. Like, they're like, Joku, you're going to work just fine here. Thanks, Gary. And I think that makes it a little easier. Even people like me who aren't as big on Joku, we have to take him seriously. I mean, he's gonna catch footballs at some point, and he's gonna give you tight end 1 weeks because he's gonna get a volume, he's gonna get touchdowns, and he's gonna be utilized much more as a tight end in Cleveland than a lot of the other tight ends around the NFL, and that means something. So.
And I think he does have that unjustified confidence in himself where he thinks he's the best athlete on the field. He saw a bunch of those Zeke Elliott hurdles, and he went into games and started hurdling people over catches and after catching. And that's gonna be an injury. First time he does that in the league, you see guys, those safeties will go low on him, and he'll be out for a while. So they really got to keep him safe. He's a really raw talent, but if they develop him well, which we know the Browns are a fantastic organization in developing players. So, I have high hopes for him. Hopefully he gets traded, but I think he'll do really well in the league.
Let's see if the Browns can turn a corner. I'm hoping that they can do so. So he'll be interesting to watch. I'm staying away from all these guys. The tight ends they don't do very much in their rookie season. So the expectations, I'm in majoritively redraft and keeper leagues. I'm going to stay away from him, but it should be exciting. Let's see if the Miami Browns can improve as a team one step at a time. Let's go to the next drafted tight end, and that's Gerald Everett out of South Alabama. He was drafted in the second round, 12th pick of the second round, 44th overall. Kind of has that 6'3", 239 size body that a lot of these other guys do. What are your expectations? He's actually taken there was a back-to-back. The next guy we'll talk about, it's Bear. He was drafted 1 pick before him. So Everett, South Alabama. What are you guys expecting? Do you like the situation with him going to the Rams 1 year after they kind of went high on Higbee at the tight end position as well? What are your thoughts with the Los Angeles Rams and how they can grow Gerald Everett and his talents?
For me,
go
ahead, man. All right, so Gerald Everett.
Go ahead, man. My bad.
We are professionals here, right? So Gerald Everett, actually, his stock went up for me after the draft. Everett is like a watered down version of Evan Engram. I read that and I thought that was like the perfect way to explain it. The thing is, Evan Engram's going to be stuck in this terrible situation. And Everett, I don't think he could have found a more favorable position. Gerald Everett is one guy there for the Rams, and I think Cooper Kupp was another person that benefited from landing in Los Angeles or landing on the Rams, because since we have 2 LA teams now. He's a big guy. While Evan Engram was like more split out because he's a big wide receiver, Everett lined up more as like a halfback because he's not quite the athlete that Engram is, but he made use of that position. He played really well. I was kind of worried at the times because he put on like 25 pounds in a year, and it was like that's kind of pushing like some extremes. And it's like, why did you have to do that? How's your body going to tolerate that? He has small hands, but we've seen him be a capable pass catcher just fine. He has to block. He can. He's not always willing. I'd rather him not, but it doesn't seem like he's going to have to do that on the Rams as well. It doesn't seem like anyone wants to block for the Rams, so they don't really have to worry about that. After the draft, I'm buying into it. I mean, I think he's put in a very favorable situation. I think he's actually going to be the most Jordan Reed-esque type player for the Rams than, let's say, Evan Engram will be for the Giants or O.J. Howard. We weren't comparing O.J. Howard to like a Jordan Reed, but someone like David Njoku or Evan Engram. I think Gerald Everett as the Jordan Reed type of player for his football team. It's the most ideal situation for him. I've been picking up everywhere he falls a little bit. The hype's starting to catch up a little bit. People are starting to get on board just because of day one effectiveness. He's going to be out there on the football field. I'm buying him all day. I love it. I will pass on guys like Njoku and Engram at their price to get a Gerald Everett a little bit later on and pretty much reap similar results.
Yeah, I mean, one big worry for me is he lost 15 pounds going into the combine. And, you can lose 15 pounds, but how quickly can you put those 15 pounds back on, especially when you're learning a new playbook, learning a new system, and learning how to play in the NFL? So there could be a big learning curve and a curve where he has to put on that weight. And I mean, Jared Goff only really had one game last year against the Saints. So Everett will probably be the third wide receiver coming into this year for them, or the third passing target. So it's like, can you really trust a Jared Goff third target? I mean, we don't really have high expectations for the rookie tight ends coming into their first year. And the small hands, he has 8.5-inch hands, which I know that like measuring point, the breaking point for quarterbacks is 9 inches, so they can keep a good grip on the ball. So I think there has to be some consistency with that in pass catching. And so you could see a good number of drops, and that could really keep him off the field for his first couple of years. Gamer, though, he really kind of brings his level play up against good teams, and you saw that when he played Ole Miss, and he kind of single-handedly brought that team. He went to South Alabama, so not a big school, not really well known for winning. He brought them over Ole Miss, so that was a real big game, big moment. He came and played in it.
That's awesome. I think if you wanted him to put some of that weight back on, just send him to Chicago, West Loop with D-Rex. We'll go out eating at all these great restaurants. We'll throw some Valverde's back. I can get 15, 20 on that guy in a 3-day weekend. So just if you need that. I think it's interesting in watching his game film and some of his highlights from college. He's elusive with the ball in his hands. I can't think of any other player that I think is dodging tackles better, making people miss, kind of feeling like he's in a cornered along the sideline, and somehow he breaks out of it and he's going for a 45-yard touchdown. So with the ball in his hands, he is a skilled pass catcher. So small hands or not, as long as he can figure out how to bring that ball in, once he gets it, I like what he does with the ball. One of the stats that I read was that the last 2 years he's had the most forced missed tackles in college, which I think is pretty impressive. So he had 24 last year, and then he had 22 the year before. So this is a guy that if you can get him the ball, he can make something happen with it. On the other side of that, I kind of like this guy. He's one of the guys that I'm pretty high on. I don't know if the team's the perfect landing spot for him, but he looks like he can be, in my mind, he's kind of like in between a Delaney Walker and like Antonio Gates. He's not as big as Gates. He's not as short as Walker, but he's still kind of got that thicker, tall, bigger upper body. But he can get it going, and he can move. He can move. He's got a quick kind of. If he's fast or not, he can get moving pretty fast.
Yeah, he's a really quick guy, but his route running is not ideal. He wastes a lot of steps on his route running, and he really relies on his speed to create separation. So that's going to be a big issue when he comes to the next level and has to play against these experienced vets. And one thing that was interesting is he got a player comp to Quincy Enunwa. So that's kind of confusing, where he gets kind of a bigger wide receiver comp rather than another tight end, and that causes a little on my side, I think.
Yeah, I actually the Rams Lance Kendricks, he is built similarly too. Kendricks kept getting in trouble, and he had kind of a slow start to his career, but we saw what he was capable of these last couple of years. I think Gerald Everett, he's sized almost similarly to Jordan Reed. He is nowhere as close to the athlete as Jordan Reed is, but I think, like you said, we see those flashes. We see the elusiveness. We see the yards after catch. I think Sean McVay is going to do everything in his power to make Gerald Everett his Jordan Reed. Like, that's why I said, sure, it's not an ideal situation because it's the Rams, but based on what the offense needs to do and what they need to create to open up some space on the field, I think Gerald Everett fits very well into that situation. But yeah, at the same time, we talked about, how quickly he lost weight and how quickly he gained weight. Maybe he really knows how to, facilitate his body and get him into the right size for his situation. I don't know how he does it, but it seems like he's ballooning up or shrinking down. It's kind of weird, but he's still super young, so maybe he's still got that skyrocketed metabolism.
Water weight. He's still got some baby fat on him. The next pick by the Bears, Adam Shaheen. This guy is one second tight end league. Dude is a monster, and when you look at him with that frame and that body, he's 6'6", but I even read one time that he was near 6'7", 278. So this guy's almost tipping 300, but he can move, dude. That guy looks just like a locomotive. Once he gets going, my only fear is, did he do it against great talent? He had a huge stat. Comes out of Ashland University. If you've heard of Ashland, I give you credit because I've certainly never heard of that university. But we'll see. It looked like the Bears and Pace were going for a lot of D2 guys. He's a beast. Hopefully they can feed the beast, and we'll see what happens with Adam Shaheen. I always want to call him Shaheen.
Adam Shapoli, right? But
yeah,
I think we were
him and Stags love their.
Yeah, you were cutting out a little bit though, but I just have something real quick to say about Shaheen. I didn't watch too much of him. I just had a very few notes. He is a big dude, 6'6", 278. He tested fairly athletic. He doesn't give you that top notch, that world class speed, agility for a tight end, but for his size, it's really nice to see. He just seems a little stiff to me, but I think that comes with this, his size and the position at tight end that he needs to play. How's he going to work in Chicago? I don't know. Zach Miller's still there. So that's all I really got to say about Shaheen. I know a lot of people are on board because they see opportunity very soon with him. They see a big target. Are the Bears going to be able to utilize him properly? We'll wait to see to find out. So. But that's really all I have to say on him.
Yeah, I mean, as we said, he's a huge guy, and he came from a basketball background, kind of like that Antonio Gates or Jimmy Graham too. So he's going to have that kind of run down field, box the corner safety out, and then go up and get the ball mentality. And he did play college basketball. He averaged, I think, like 2.2 points a game, just like LeVar Ball. And but then once he came over and started playing football. He played 2 years of football, 2015 and 2016. He got 70 catches, 800 plus yards, and 10 plus touchdowns both years. Last year he got 16 touchdowns. So his production's really there. He could be a gamer. He could be a guy that, despite not having the greatest speed, he's just going to be a guy that goes up and competes for the ball. And as we said yesterday, they brought in Mitch Trubisky. I think them two coming in both as rookies, they're going to have kind of that Andy Dalton, AJ Green type of connection where they just kind of start developing rapport and they get along really well. They're working together on second team and then they get pushed up to first team after Glennon and Zach Miller are gone. And I think he could have a very good 5-6 year career.
Nice. Let's keep an eye on the guy. I think in the notes here, the check down action from Trubisky and even from Mike Glennon could help him out. Zach Miller's an underrated player. He's old, long in the tooth, but when that guy can stay healthy, he's productive as hell. So there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for Adam, and he's going to have Zach eating at some of this stuff. So let's see what goes on. The whole Bears are kind of in flux a little bit. We'll see what goes on. You guys have anything else to go on about that big beast of a man?
Yeah, I think he could get some play immediately just because they could go 2 tight end sets. And Ashland typically used him as a dynamic, move him around the field player. So they have the ability to set him up at a tight end or flanking Zach Miller, move him over to the other side, and then create mismatches with that. So he's comfortable moving around in formations and not always being that inline tight end. So I could see him having some impact immediately, but it's really going to depend on that rapport that he creates with Trubisky for how well he does in his career.
Cool. Well, let's move on to our second to last guy. We're coming here to a close, doing well on time. Well done, fellas. I think we've gotten a lot of good goo out here on these young tight ends. So last guy or second to last guy we're going to talk about is Jake Butt out of Michigan. He was drafted in the 5th round, pick 145. The Broncos were pretty fired up to get this guy. He's a big man coming from a good program, and he was a highly touted tight end out of high school. Definitely one of those top rivals kind of guys. And he's been an All-American the last 2 years. So we know the issue with him and the reason why he fell is in the Orange Bowl. He screwed up his ACL for the second time in a few years, which is problematic. But everyone seems to be super high on his work ethic, his ability, and his comp seems to be a Jason Witten. And I think that whenever somebody's comparing you and your work ethic and your style of football play at that position to a guy is just Hall of Fame and worthy as a Jason Witten, it sounds like a good thing. So he goes to a great team that we know and have been talking about for ages. They've just been missing a tight end. They've been void of anything other than maybe a Jacob Tamme 4 years ago, but he was probably made more by Peyton Manning than really anything else. So hopefully Jake can come back, heal off this ACL and his latest injury. Might be someone that they just sort of let kind of come back real slowly, but he's got a good prospect and landed in a great spot. So I'm excited to watch what this guy can do.
Yeah, that ACL injury was actually it was tough to see that it's the second time that knee has gone out. 1 to 2 years ago, he would have been a first rounder. He would have been the top tight end prospect. He was always been highly touted. He's that classic tight end prospect that all these coaches and GMs want. Big, tough, strapping guy. Not a great athlete, but not a bad one either. Like a Kyle Rudolph, like a Travis Kelce, like a Heath Miller, that kind of guy that can seemingly do it all for you. He's got the skills of a top tight end. You know what I mean? So, I mean, the ACL injury, having 1 isn't bad anymore. 2 is still kind of crazy. And who knows if that knee is going to hold up for the rest of his career. It's worrisome. I think Jake plays really, really well, but he puts a lot of strain on his body because of his size. I really hope we don't get to see another ACL injury because Denver does need that tight end. They have been needing one for a while. When healthy, he's a solid prospect, though. He's not a mauler or a blocker. He's not like a receiver, but he's just a really good traditional tight end that can kind of move around and kind of do what's needed of him. Very useful for a team. And I think Denver and their quarterback situation, whether it be Trevor Siemian or Paxton Lynch, or, I don't even want to say Chad Kelly. I was going to say Kyle Slaughter again, just from yesterday. He's going to be useful. He's not going to be a phenomenal fantasy football superstar, but he can be effective as a bye-week shoe-in. Denver's offense is always playing really well, always throwing the ball often. The run game is a little subpar. So I like Jake Butt when he's healthy, and I hope he kind of maintains that for his career. I wish him the best. He's just a great guy to watch.
Yeah, he doesn't have top end any measurables. He's basically, if you put him on a Madden team, he'd probably have a 75 rating at everything. He's just that middle of the line, can do everything, balanced blue collar worker. He'll come in, he'll be a true professional from day one, and he'll earn the confidence and the respect of his teammates, and he'll work his way into that starting lineup. And he comes from Michigan, which was the Jim Harbaugh system. And Jim Harbaugh has brought some pretty good tight ends into the league. He's got Kobe Fleener, Levine Tololo, Austin Hooper, and Zach Ertz. And three of those 4 are pass-catching tight ends, or who we think of as pass-catching tight ends. So there's a pretty good history of the Harbaugh tight ends. I mean, we're still waiting for Kobe Fleener to take that next step. And I just really think he's going to come in and be one of those guys that he can just read the defenses. He knows how to find those seams. And Michigan in 2016 and 2015, they had a 135.4 QB rating when targeting him. So he's a really efficient guy when he gets targeted. It's just, does he have the ability to create that separation, especially with a young quarterback who might not want to make that risky throw so he doesn't get into the dog pound?
Awesome. Yeah, that should be. I like your takes on some of those Stanford tight ends that Harbaugh was able to kind of bring and rear into the league. That's I didn't really think about that. Funny that I almost just forgot that he was the Stanford coach not all that long ago. But yeah, that's an impressive thing right there. So I don't know. I'm excited to see what happens. I hope they kind of just sit him a little bit, let him heal. Let's not rush him back. And I think that's probably going to be the approach they take. Let's just hope that if he can stay healthy and maintain it, by the time he's ready to go as a pro, which could be as soon as next year, the rest of the wide receiver and some of that team are going to be very old by that point. Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders aren't getting any younger. So that team, by the time he's actually a big cog in the offensive wheel, might look a lot different than it does right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was reading reports that they're expecting Jake Butt to probably begin the season on the PUP. Some people are like, you may not see him at all in 2017, but you might see him there towards midseason or towards the end. I do hope they sit him as well. Like, what is Jake Butt going to do to push Denver into Super Bowl consideration if he's not fully healthy? Are they really going to risk losing this guy right away? But maybe they will throw him right in because they're like, we need you right now. We have these aging wide receivers, like you mentioned, but they also still have a young quarterback. So Denver's in a weird spot. You want to root for them, but it seems like they have some glaring holes. Their defense is, top 3 in the league. I look forward to seeing Jake Butt. I do hope he sits this year, though. And I do hope for a healthy career because he is like one of those leaders for a football team that are desired by these coaches and GMs.
Well, the last thing I'll say, and I'll feed it to you and you can close this player out, Harbeat. The thing that I like about him, and I mentioned this in the podcast a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago, whatever, they're all blending together. God bless America. Is the fact that he had no regrets about playing in that Orange Bowl, no regrets about always playing the game. He just loves football. He's passionate about it. A lot of these top end guys were sitting out of their bowl games for the reasons that happened to him. He got injured, and look, he went in the 5th round instead of probably the 2nd if he hadn't gotten injured. Lost a lot of money there, but never once is he crying over spilt milk. He's just saying, hey, I'm a football player. I'm not going to sit out. I'm going to go play football. This happened. It sucks. I'm going to work it out, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to be stronger. And just that mentality, I love a guy that just has that kind of football player, badass, the type A personality. And again, going back to the whole Witten thing, it seems kind of perfect. I think we'll see this guy in the league for a while if that knee can hold up. So go for it, Harbeat. We'll close out on Butt and do our last guy.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like this offseason, the Broncos are really targeting those guys with 2 ACL injuries. I mean, they brought in Jamal Charles, they brought in Butt, and they're really looking for those comeback player of the year. So they're going all in on comeback player of the year. That being said, I do agree with you, Waz. I hope he sits out most of this year, at least until he's back to 100%, and I think he's going to be a really great pro. I really love the Heath Miller comparison. He can be one of those guys that, I mean, you don't see him burning people. You don't see going up and just dominating people for contested grabs, but he's going to be that guy that's always there, that you can always count on, finding a little seam or getting open, finding little intricacies in the defense. And I think he's going to be a really good tight end 2, borderline tight end 1 for his whole career.
Yep.
I like that Heath Miller comparison. That's awesome. That seems quite congruent. All right, the last, obviously there were other tight ends taken. We chose to focus on these 7, and the last guy here is Jordan Leggett. And the last time we saw this guy, he was having a nice game to help Clemson win a championship. And I think he had somewhere in 90 yards, had a nice touchdown, real effective game in his last college game to win it all. So for me, I'll talk about him briefly here and then let you guys do your thing. In what I've seen, and because I have actually seen this guy play a lot due to Clemson and them getting a lot of primetime games, what I think in just watching him, he kind of reminded me of an Aaron Hernandez a little bit. Not sorry if that's too soon. I'm not going to joke or anything, but he's bigger. He's like he's Aaron Hernandez, but he's got like 4 more inches than that guy. He can run. He's fluid. He just looks like he's just an athletic guy. He's kind of a well-rounded player. So again, when I think of him, I really do think of Aaron Hernandez, but he's got more body. Both of them were 4'6", 40 guys. So he's got speed. Leggett's got some speed. He's last 2 seasons, he had 86 catches for 1,261 yards and 15 touchdowns. So he's a pretty productive kind of guy. And I think I like the landing spot. He goes to the Jets. With all tight ends, maybe not this year, but I think the Jets could need to turn it around. We'll see who they come up with at quarterback, but it's a good spot. They've been looking for a tight end forever as well. Jason Morrow did not pan out, and we'll see didn't ASJ, don't they have him? He didn't do anything last year.
No.
So he's going to have an opportunity to be their tight end one, and hopefully he seizes it.
I don't see that. Personally, I think okay, so Jordan Leggett.
You don't see the Hernandez comparison, or you don't see him taking the job?
I don't see him taking the job. I actually had also a hard time kind of comparing him to anyone. So like Jordan Leggett is like all of his numbers, all of his play and his ability, it's all solid, but it's like that boring solid, like just good enough, just average. He had solid hands. He's an okay. He can block. He's an okay blocker. He has the size, but he doesn't appear super strong. He's like an average speed guy, average agility, average athleticism. I just see a really average prospect here, especially in the tight end position. The thing is, Austin Seferian-Jenkins will be suspended the first 2 weeks. And the fact that ASJ made it through all of last year with the very limited play time, very limited snaps, he stayed out of trouble. I think he was they were like almost punishing him in a way, but at the same time, they had a lot of other weapons. I think ASJ is a much better value this year at the tight end position. Super great athlete, much better athlete. He seems like he's finally screwing his head on straight. If I don't like Jordan Leggett at all. I'm a Jets fan. I can't see this guy ever being like an effective tight end. I can't see him being an effective tight end on the Jets. It's even worse. I can see someone like Austin Seferian-Jenkins. I think Leggett's always going to be one of those backup tight ends who's just good enough to fill a role in case someone gets suspended for DUI or gets hurt. I think he's just going to fit the mold of all the previous Jets tight ends and be irrelevant, really. So that's that. I mean, he's an okay player in every area. He's just going to be a solid NFL player. I don't think he's going to be fantasy football relevant at all.
Yeah, touching on ASJ, when he got cut by the Bucs, it seemed like he really figured it out that this is real life, that he can't just keep fucking around and getting away with it. So it seems like getting cut by that warm weather team, having to go up into the blizzards of New York. I think he finally got it. And then I want to give a shout out to PK Ripper. He asked us on Twitter to go into Jordan Leggett. Is he going to have a positive impact year one? No. Is he going to have a positive impact year two? Positive impact year three? No. Is he going to have a positive impact year four? Okay, I'm not being LeBron anymore.
Go on. Shout out to Ripper.
A big red flag
Ripper's driving right now. He's sad. You just made Ripper real sad.
Hey, Ripper, I'm a Jets fan too. Don't be sad. Be happy. It's okay.
Jordan Leggett referred to himself in an interview in the Combine as lazy. So, I mean, that's really how can you take a backup tight end that thinks he's lazy? On top of that, at Clemson, in his 4 years there, he didn't play a single snap on special teams. So it's like, what is he going to do? He's going to be a backup tight end. He's not going to contribute on special teams. I just don't see him being in the league for more than 5 years. He's going to kind of wash out, not really make that much of an impact. And since he can't get on special teams, I don't see what he can do.
And not to mention, I think the Jordan Leggett pseudo hype was because of his output in his playoff appearances, versus Alabama. But if you look back at his last 27 games, he caught 3 or fewer passes in 15 of those. So, I mean, they didn't rely on him much. He was like that guy when the time was right. He always got the big pass, and he got all the spotlight for winning the national championship. But we've seen that with Tyree. We've seen these guys who just come through, and then they're like, "Thanks for doing your job." Those few plays. Jordan Leggett isn't going to be a consistent option, especially in the New York Jets. He's just not.
Cool. I think we've come to an end here. We've got some good points across the board. Obviously, it sounds like everyone believes that this year in a redraft is not going to be the year for any of these guys. I think there's some great long-term prospects here. So in Dynasty, some of these guys, as Waz alluded to, are going in the first round in your dynasty picks, and he pointed out the guys that he likes. Should be an interesting class. I mean, I can't remember ever 3 tight ends going in the first round. So thanks for coming on this show and delivering the knowledge, fellas. Go enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and more power to you. This is good. This is good times. We'll be doing next weekend. I think we're going to be doing either both the running back and the wide receiver position. If we only get one of those, so be it. But this video and the quarterback one that we recorded yesterday will both be up on Pyromaniac.com by end of today, and that'll be found in the rookie dossier section. So, amen, guys. Love the hard work. Appreciate everything you do for the site. I think our listeners and our fans do as well. So go enjoy the rest of your day, and peace to you.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, D-Rex, but I'm pretty sure this is also going to be on our draft kit as well, right?
Well, yeah, we're going to figure out how a lot of the notes and stuff will be as pros and cons, definitely for the players in their player rankings. The draft kit, there will be some draft kit information. I don't know how we're going to it'll probably just be links out to the dossier, because really what we're trying to do this year is use these videos and a lot of this rookie dossier content on Pyromaniac in lieu of squishing all this stuff into the draft kit. So we're trying to, push more rookie stuff because it's an important position without it all just kind of living within the draft kit. But yes, awesome stuff. Have fun. Waz, whatever you're going to do today, enjoy it. You as well, Harbeat. Out. Pyros, we love you. Amen.